Hey guys, it's Warden, and welcome to the second episode with Real Talk with Warden. Now, if you haven't figured it out already, these episodes are meant to be kind of listened to in a podcast style rather than you trying to pay attention to them on the screen. So, with that being said, today's topic we're going to be talking about leadership, and here I have my friend Weston Callow.
Hey, it's good to be here.
And he's going to talk to us about leadership. Weston is in the ROTC program at the university that he and I both attend. He has been a squad leader for, 5 semesters now?
Yeah, that's about right.
And now he's a platoon sergeant in the program. The truth of it is, it's just watching after a bunch of college students, but still, it takes a lot having to deal with the, silliness that can go on in that program.
Oh, for sure.
But he's also gone through the Fort Knox Cadet Summer Training Basic Camp for ROTC, which, I don't know, would you say that was hard?
It depends on what type of hard you're asking about. If you're saying physically difficult, then it was in some respects. I mean, lack of food's always fun, and just long hours of being awake. Those kind of sucked. It was stressful a little bit, so emotionally, mentally, but wasn't anything too serious. It was nothing like the stress that they put on you at basic training, because that's more to build an individual soldier with specific skill set. And the basic camp is kind of to introduce people to the military, and if you actually are in ROTC and preparing for the officer track, then it's to develop your critical thinking skills and make you into a better leader of soldiers, as opposed to a soldier who just completes a task.
Nice. Now, like I said before, we're going to be talking about leadership in this Real Talk with Warden. So those of you that are looking to be leaders out on the field or are looking to start their own team or already are leading their own team, this one's for you guys. So with that being said, Weston, you said you had a couple examples of leadership that you've noticed, both good and bad, you wanted to talk about?
Oh, 100%. So we'll start with bad leadership first, and then move into the good. So bad leadership really just starts when toxicity becomes the part of that person's leadership style. So being an aggressive leader and being on top of things and on top of people is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you can be an aggressive leader and have that be your leadership style and be successful in that. But as a whole, you will continue to alienate people depending on how exactly you're working through your situation. So be it at work, be it on the airsoft field, or in the military of some capacity. When it comes to bad leadership, really what I've seen is people continually not practicing the things they preach. Like, I've legitimately seen people a weekend before ask everyone to really respect their higher up leadership and to not have confrontation with them in front of their subordinates, and then that next week just right in front of the whole platoon start calling out one of the superiors about some little thing that should have been clarified either beforehand or afterward, but in front of everyone. So just creating conflict in that open setting is very toxic and leads to just awful leadership as a whole. I mean, it really makes whatever unit it is that you're a part of, whether it's a work unit, like I said, or airsofting, or in the military, it really makes it difficult for everybody to band together under that leadership and successfully complete their task. So big takeaway there is don't be a jerk. That's kind of easy for most people. Just be considerate of everyone else's feelings, and then if you continually have conflict, to take that outside of your teaching or public setting, bring it somewhere either with a third party or just outside of that issue, and talk about it civilly and really get things done, because the majority of the time that you have conflict there, everybody has good intentions, but world wars were started on good intentions. So you really have to understand the fact that those sorts of things should be taken care of outside of your training atmosphere or the game atmosphere or even in the work atmosphere. When it comes to good leadership, I've seen some some really awesome leadership. That's the sort of person where you 100% will just drop down and be like, all right, I will do whatever they say, just because they're them. These are the people that practice what they preach. Like, for me, one of the most important things that I've seen when it comes to leaders who I respect is that they'll go out ahead of me and get stuff done before even kind of telling me to do something. So they really show their merit. And, it's leadership usually, especially in ROTC, is just kind of a handed over position. It's not necessarily something that you'll work up to with time and service or merit. It really comes down to, all right, our cadre, our leadership here are just going to hand you this position. And when they do that, anybody could have it, but it really takes a special person to own that leadership position and practice what they preach and really deserve it. So when that happens, these guys are out ahead of me on runs. They're out moving stuff to prepare for our exercises before anyone else gets there. They're putting in extra hours outside of the time that we specifically have set aside for ROTC stuff. They're learning, and then when people have questions, they explain things in a different way than is usually taught. They kind of just they go above and beyond what you expect. And the nice thing is one of the things that I've learned over my course of 21 years of existing on this planet is that if you hate somebody who's in leadership above you and you fear them, then you'll do 100% of what they asked you to do. You'll get that task done. You'll do it well because it's that task and you're afraid of that leader. But if you truly love a leader, then you'll excel. You'll go above 100%. You'll do extra. You'll put in extra time because they are, and stuff like that. So it really pays to be a good leader in that respect.
All right, and so moving on from that, and going into, I guess, experiences at Fort Knox, because that tends to be a lot of make-or-break situations, especially for Cadet Basic Camp. I know there was one situation where you were the platoon sergeant and something just went terribly wrong. What happened there, and how did you respond to that?
We had a couple of different instances here. I could talk about the one where I screwed up, or I could talk about the one where other people screwed up. I'll talk about the one that other people screwed up first. So it was the 4th of July. We were supposed to have the day off while we were at one of the forward operations bases at Fort Knox's training centers. And there's probably about 200 or 300 cadets in that tent city, as we called it. We were all just kind of hanging out, getting set for bed. Then a tornado siren started going off and started raining and blowing like crazy. So obviously everybody started freaking out, and then some idiot somewhere told everybody to drop everything that they had or were doing or whatever. So I was just in my PTs, and I just thrown my phone in a waterproof bag to keep it safe. Like, all my stuff was laid out everywhere, and I was like getting ready for bed, and everybody started sprinting towards the chow hall that we had set up. So it's just hundreds of cadets. It's mass pandemonium. Once everybody gets there, we're trying to get something set to take accountability, and then couldn't figure that out. Then everybody kicked us out of the area there to get us to a low-lying zone, so we could avoid the tornado. And at this point, it's pouring rain. It's super dark outside. Very few people even have their flashlights on them, let alone are able to navigate correctly. So it's just this giant herd of cadets. And being platoon sergeant, I obviously, needed to get track of my personnel and their weapon systems, because we all had issued M16 A2s just for those training exercises. So as we were setting up our formation, we got our weapons accounted for. Some lieutenant who's there just at the training site started telling people to get their weapons down because he didn't want to get struck by lightning. But he did this in the wrong way. He was telling them to drop their weapons or to throw them. I don't really know exactly how that happened, but cadets interpreted that as chuck your weapon system into the middle of the forest at night when it's pitch black and nobody knows where anything's at. So cadets were legitimately throwing real live M16s, not with ammo or anything, but legitimate M16s into the middle of the forest during this rainstorm and tornado warning. So after about like 20 minutes of staying in this low-lying zone off the forward operations base, we finally all went back towards the commissary. That warning was lifted, but obviously we didn't have accountability of all the rifles. Now, as platoon sergeant, when we set up our formation and got accountability, I had everybody stack their rifles in the square format like we normally do, and we got accountability there, and just everybody went back, picked up their rifles, and had their correct serial numbers, and we were good to go. But other platoons definitely had some other issues. So, I mean, there's some examples of good leadership and bad leadership there. So, the good leadership was the drill sergeants who kept a handle on everything, and I mean, even though we were up till 2 in the morning looking for all that stuff, still kept us under control, and were able to take care of the situation and handle it. So everybody lived. We didn't have anyone die, and that's kind of important. Bad leadership, that stupid lieutenant who decided to tell people to throw their weapons into the middle of nowhere. That was really dumb. So just don't do stupid stuff like that when it comes to leadership. Okay, so the negative experience that really poops on me in a lot of ways was a week or so after that. We were still running operations in the field out of a patrol base style area. So instead of setting up an actual patrol base, we just kind of threw open our ponchos and were laying on the ground. But one day while we were out running operations, it started raining like crazy and there was some lightning, so we needed to go to a lightning protection area because lightning kills people. That was very sarcastic.
Fun fact.
It was kind of dumb. We really didn't need to go to those lightning protection areas, but because of doctrine, we did. So we go to this lightning protection area, and when we do that, there was a second concrete pad that everybody would set their rifles down on. Obviously, like in a row, set up correctly as the platoon normally does. But then we would move off of that site just in case that got struck by lightning, so we wouldn't get all jacked up from it. So everybody set their weapons down, and I had everyone in formation. And one of the drill sergeants asked me that fateful question of, are all the weapon systems accounted for and safe? I knew that I had all the numbers that I needed because I had physically counted twice, but obviously hadn't checked to see whether or not everybody had put their weapon system on safe. So me and the drill sergeant walked over there, and I put way too much faith in the personnel that I was entrusted of. And there were 3 weapon systems with simulated rounds in the chamber, locked and loaded, and the weapon system was on fire or on semi instead of being on safe like it should have been. So we got PT'd for about an hour in the rain, just in front of everybody, and it was just a good old-fashioned smoke session. Everything from sit-ups to push-ups to holding the front-leaning rest for an inordinate amount of time. Like, it was all sorts of fun. Everybody was muddy, wet, and tired and annoyed. Not necessarily just with the 3 unknown people who had left their weapons on fire, but with their leadership who hadn't double-checked with them and made sure everything was good. So I gave a little speech after that, kind of apologized to everybody, let them know that I take the responsibility seriously and I should have double-checked the weapons so we didn't have this problem and I didn't get PT'd. So majority of people were pretty well receptive to that, but obviously, I took that as a loss for myself. So always make sure that you physically double check, because soldiers not only will lie to you, people will lie to you, but also it's just good to get a second set of eyes on things and double check and make sure that everything is squared away the way it should be, regardless of your situation.
So then what really kind of set you apart, I guess, from how others may have handled that was not the situation that you and others ended up putting your platoon through with failing to check to see that their weapons were unsafe, but making a promise to everyone else that you would do better next time and keeping that promise.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was a big part of it. And I think that, when I held myself to that standard and really took ownership of that platoon for the rest of the cycle, that it showed that, I wasn't kidding. I really did want to, do things better, and I did. So, yeah.
So, making those promises and telling your soldiers or those under you, for those that are airsofting or in any other workplace that isn't really military, keeping that promise and working towards making sure you take the correct actions to seeing that through. Now, we don't got much time left, but I got probably two more questions for you. One is a bit more in-depth and the other doesn't have to be. So I guess as a leader and from what you've seen throughout the military, ROTC, Fort Knox, anywhere else, what are three qualities that any leader should have for both dealing with situations to help get their people through that situation, as well as dealing with the people under them themselves?
That's a great question. So first, I'd 100% say is being sincere. So don't be a shady dude. Just be straight up and mean what you say and say what you mean. So really just don't beat around the bush with a lot of that stuff. So if you're in a sucky situation, you got to acknowledge that it sucks to your soldiers. You got to validate that, this situation is trash. I really don't want to be up until 2 in the morning pulling fire guard, and I know neither do you. But you're still going to come out and make a decision and make stuff happen. And that leads me into my second point. So being decisive. If you sit around and wait too long, then people aren't going to be ready to go or be as invested. And that decisiveness will really set you apart, both as a leader in the workplace and anywhere in the military. So just making that decision, sticking with it, and even if it not necessarily is the best decision, a quick course of action can usually offset the ramifications of making a bad decision slowly, or even a good decision slowly. I'd say the last attribute that I think would be really important is presence. So just making sure that you're available to the people that are subordinate to you, and that you spend time understanding your leadership, because there's always somebody above you. So making sure that they understand that you're tracking and know what's going on, and then doubling that down and making sure that your people know what's happening. So as well as being open to those suggestions and comments and other concerns of your subordinates, making sure that they feel like they could go to you and ask questions, and that you'll be real with them.
All right, and then this last question. This was actually a question I heard a lot at basic camp, and probably you've heard as well if you haven't asked it yourself too. Was especially as a leader, keep saying that word and it's starting to get really old. But especially as a leader or someone looking to be a better leader, what book would you recommend for someone to read?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's a lot of books on leadership out there. Shoot.
It doesn't have to be like specifically on leadership, but it could, accidentally or unintentionally, I guess, incorporate those, incorporate leadership characteristics and traits, and basically how to do this.
Well, I've read a lot in my day, so I'd say the majority of officer level leadership books, and just books that officers in the military have written, are awesome. Majority of stuff by CEOs is really good. But there's some other stuff that specifically just stuck out to me. I read a lot about Navy SEALs when I was younger. So everything from Lone Survivor to Service by Marcus Luttrell. Those are both really good books, and that series is awesome. As well as the No Easy Day book by one of the SEALs who went on the actual mission to take out Bin Laden. Just shows the process that the leadership really went through to make that mission happen. And I think that's a good one. There's some awesome examples out there, but also just investing in just basic leadership books like On Leadership by Wooten, I think it is. That was a really good book that was formative for me, as well as spiritual styles, things like The Art of War or the Bible even, and other books, things like that just impart knowledge. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, nice. Well, thank you, man, for definitely taking the time to talk about this subject. And thank you, dear listeners and viewers, for tuning in. So we'll be trying to get a lot more videos and talks out throughout this week. So until then, Ronin all the way, and stay melee, my friends.